right. Yeah, wrong. Welcome to live number 140. We've had a few technical issues just a moment ago, and so I'm a bit all over the place, to be fair. I will get to your comments in a moment. I've had to print so those that were here early will know that there was a bit of a catastrophe around what we were doing, because it's just I'll put it down to operator error. So I had to very quickly put this live up, delete the other one. So I hope everybody's that was there earlier is in the body of the Kirk so far. So Andrew James from the other side said, no doubt more celebs will be moving to the UK. Oh, you bet your sweet baby. Timetables of adrenochrome, pizza menus, emails, party invitations for Diddy parties, all miraculously lost. I wonder if gigs and comeback tours will be postponed. Well, on the one hand, we'll talk about the LA fires, because I do have friends out there, and I am trying to get a particular friend who's living in LA onto either the live or to record a Zoom to kind of give you an on-the-ground response as to what is going on in LA currently. Let me just sort this out, because I am going to reference the newspapers today. Just want to get that. I need the coughing. That's what I've done with it. Fingers crossed that there won't be too much quaffing this evening. For crying out loud. Super Ted, evening Adrian, evening you wrongin'. Just putting my pants under bed, should be back by about 8 o'clock. Super Ted, I hope you're in the body of the Kirk this evening. Paulie Galtieri, evening Adrian, you utter wrongin'. Rusty Mouse, come on Rev, baby, sock it to us this evening. Rusty Mouse, always sucking it, so to speak. Stuart says, evening, Rev. Think it's time to do another Jaeger shot. Oh, Stuart, you're utter wrong. I do have my hibiscus to hand, said a spokesperson. What did you say? You've been to the Jaeger shop. With it being so cold lately, we're almost out. Might get some extra for the bishop. It makes him a bit more lively. Also makes him ski better, so I told him. Rumour has it the Bishop wants Keir Starmer, Dickie Reeves, Lammy and Rayner in the Kirk for extra diversity. They can Foxtrot Oscar, because I am going to tell you some stuff that's going to make your hair curl tonight. I'm not messing about. Proper hair curling stuff. Stuart says, I don't think the Rev would approve. You're right there. Johnny Ray's evening, Rev. It's nice to join the other early wrong'uns in the body of the broad Kirk. It is a broad Kirk, this particular Kirk. So if you can, get in from the beginning, get down to the front, because that's where all the fun happens. I'll avert my gaze. But if you can get down the front and get your sweet bippy into the pews. So there is extra Battenberg. The Bishop has been into the parish this week, and he said that he brought a little extra Battenberg because he knows how you like it. That's the Battenberg. And we have altar wine. We also have a little gift that the Bishop left, which I'll tell you about in a moment. Karen Boo says, evening, Rev, evening, all you utter wrong'uns. What's on for tonight? Well, I can tell you, Karen Boo, we're going to talk about something called labour pains. You ladies know all about that. We men have no clue. The BBC, we're going to talk about the LA fires, because I do believe that there's only really two subjects that people are talking about. And the newspapers are reporting one, but they're not touching the other, if you know what I mean. And because this is alive, I can literally say anything that I want. So I will say that the LA fires, because it's so catastrophic. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone has an opinion. Was at dinner last night and on Friday night, and on both dinners, everyone talked about both subjects: the grooming gangs, the northern grooming gangs, but they're not just northern; they are north, south, east, and west in this sceptred isle. So we'll kind of get there. I'll let you know about what His Excellency has offered everyone in the body of the Kirk this evening. We've got Trump 2.0. As I say, we get this Labour pains. I've just looked at what is going on with the Labour Party. I mean, heaven forbid. They're not gonna be in power for that long. They're not. Obviously, Rachel from accounts has run off to China because the Chinese love buying debt, especially Americans. So they'll be giving us, I think, about 600 million, which is nothing really comparatively. I mean, Gordon Bloody Brown sold our gold reserves off for 500 million. I mean, there was rich boy Sunak giving Emil Macron and his husband 500 million quid for what? Oh, stop the boats, and they didn't. So we are going to talk about that and other things. There's and if we go off on a tangent, then we go off on a tangent. But once I've done these, I actually want to say something. Let me just. Right, just making a little aid memoir for myself. Thank you, Karen Boo. The Bovril evening, everyone. Is the UK bankrupt yet? Yeah, we are going to talk about that tonight. The Bovril. Andrew James. Talking about my cuppa. How about ask him about how about a cuppa stirred, not shaken, please? What do you think it is? I mean, maracas. That's me shaking a cocktail. Not a Molotov cocktail, just a cocktail, before you say anything, because we're clean living in this particular body of the Kirk. Right, or the moderator. Will the owner of the Tartan Flash make themselves known to the church warden? This is not to be confused with TBT's Lady Toys. Mad Matt UK, good evening, Rev. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all keeping well and warm. Well, I will mention that in a second. And Johnny Ray's already in the body of the Kirk, and he's already smashed the likes. So for everyone that's in the body of the Kirk, if you could please smash the likes, because it does help the channel. I just want to say, I'm a northern boy by now. I'm from Sunderland, where it is freezing. I mean, it is bitterly cold in Sunderland, even at the height of summer. And the last few days, with these hard frosts and the thick snow and everything that is kind of wintry, I can sort of reflect on my childhood, where I didn't even have a coat. We just had, T-shirt. If it got cold, 2 T-shirts. But it is so cold that I didn't want to take my clothes off tonight, so to speak, for my usual scraping of the face before I do a live. And all this week, I've been reflecting on our pensioners, the old ones, because the parasite classes, they literally don't care. And this is not me sort of starting the live and getting all tree-hugging hippie-ish, but it's just reflecting on the way we treat the people of this island, the indigenous population, shall we call them, and the elderly. And I mean, I live, if I may say so, I live in a beautiful home, not for the elderly, and I'm finding it tough. Me, with all me extra cladding and being brought up in the northeast of England, where we don't feel the cold. Even, I mean, I've slept in. I lived in Nottinghamshire once, 20 odd years ago, and I slept with the windows open, and it got down to -20. Didn't feel it. But now I'm just thinking about the pensioners and thinking this actually is real. And the government, the first rule of the government is protect the people. And they've taken a decision where they're happy to have 4,000 pensioners die as collateral damage because that's who they are, because they have no empathy or compassion. And seemingly it's the political party of the working people. And the way the weather is at the moment, the way the temperatures are at the moment, it's my right at the forefront of my mind is what's going to happen to the pensioners this winter, and how Rachel from Accounts and Ginger Growler and Starmer the Harmer, they literally don't care about anybody else but themselves. So that the elderly who can't get warm, who don't have the winter fuel allowance, who don't have that extra couple of £100, just to look after them, just to put the heating on, heating or eating, just to have that bit of heating through these couple of weeks. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of January, beginning of February, which is only 2 weeks away, then the temperatures will start to come up. But it has been tough this week, or the last 10 days or so. So forgive me if I'm not being all jolly and stuff at the start of the live, as I usually am. I just keep thinking about the pensioners, and then I keep thinking about these evil bar stewards in the House of Commons, and they've just gone, how much is it going to cost us? Oh, right, is that 1 and a bit billion? Right, stuff them. Stuff the old buggers. We'll give all of our money away to Africa. Yeah, 11.5 billion. We'll give it to Africa. Call it, Rachel, what can we say it's for? Well, Africa's quite warm, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, it must be warm because climate change. So we'll say it's for climate change. Give him 11.5 billion. And what about Sniffy Boy and his Bugattis and his fancy French handbags for his wife? Not for him, obviously. He's straight in heels. How much are we giving them? 3 billion. How often are we giving them 3 billion? Well, every year that we're in charge. Oh, so it might just be one 3 billion payment then. Yeah. So how much is that? Well, it's 14.5 billion. Right. So hang on a second. So we're giving Africa, because it's warm, that must be because of climate change, 11.5 million a year. So that works at 57.5 billion in 5 years. And then there's Sniffy. Have you been on the phone to him, Rachel, and tell him that we're still going to pay him? We'll pay him in pound coins. Might take a big ship. So how much are we giving him? 15 billion. So what's 57.5 and 15? Oh, that must be 72.5 billion pounds. And how much did we need for the pensioners? 1 and a bit. So why didn't we give the pensioners the winter fuel allowance? Oh, because we're carrying on the standing 90s type, Kia. 70-odd billion wasted on foreigners, on Ukraine. There's not even a war going on in Ukraine. Oh, don't be stupid, man. Don't read it in the newspapers every day going, oh, well, the war in Ukraine is still going on. They're lying to you. Yes, of course, there has been some kind of conflict there, but Sniffy Zelensky's already asked multiple times for peace, and so's Vladimir Putin, and we're 8 days away from Trump 2.0. So you know what's coming in a week's time? Correct. And these idiots in London are saying, well, we'll kill off the pensioners, we don't care. Now, every time I feel a shiver or I feel cold, I think of the evil in London and what they're doing to our pensioners. The quicker they're gone and Foxtrot Oscared, the better. Oh, see, it feels so much better for getting that out. Better out than in, as they say. So where are we? Oh, Johnny Ray's there. Oh, it all disappeared. I know, Johnny Ray. Sorry, I may need my glasses back on while everybody gets their feet in the body of the Kirk. Oh, everybody's keen this evening. So just a couple of comments before I get absolutely into it. Proper into it. In the field, evening all. I'm not staying with this live as t'other one has warmed up nicely. Still a bit chilly on in this one. Anybody translate that? in the field. Welcome to the body of the cook. I do hope you can stay. Des Ashton, good evening all, and the Rev. So nice that we are at last thawing out. Speak for yourself, Des. Bloody hell. Even the Eskimos have been in saying, here, Adrian, I've got an extra jumper. Sadly, can't say the same for the establishment, as it seems intent on devouring itself. I know, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's wonderful. We are going to talk about 9 jobs, Nigel. Did you see this in the press today? So let me just give you a bit of insight before I continue with the comments. The establishment, the hoi polloi, the parasites are really worried. Not only are they worried, Nigel Farage has got the best relationship with the new president of America, not the one that keeps browning his pants every day while he's out for an ice cream. But Farage is right there. Now, Starmer, he's going to get it. Rachel Reeves, she's definitely not getting it. And Angela Rayner, well, her son's definitely getting it. I'll talk about that a little bit later. He's got an OF account. And the way they're doing it, they're trying to besmirch. They're doing a Trump on Farage, on Nigel Garage. And you can tell, look at this. Left-wing rag. Left-wing rag. And anybody going any left-wing, all the broadcasters, all the telly, all the newspapers, all those that have lumped themselves in with this fetid evil in London, we're all going to vote with our feet. 76% of this country, 76% of this country have had enough. They want reforming as government. They're all quaking in their boots, all of them, because they have no clue. It's all about human beings. And if your ideology, your theology and your philosophy, if it's somewhere left of Marxism, then we're just laughing at you. Because A, it's got no humour. B, it's got no empathy. C, it's got no compassion. It's absolutely devoid of anything human. And all we want is the human being, the human condition to be revered. That's why bloody Marxism. Oh, no such thing as bloody religion. Well, actually, let's not talk about religion, because they're all perverts in Rome, what they're doing to our kids in North America and the like around the world. So what they do is they go, right, what are we going to do? Let's just try to blacken Nigel Garage's name. And everybody goes, what are you doing that for? He's a man of the people, so somebody says, and he likes a pint. And, well, he's multi-millionaire, Nigel Garage, but he's actually evolving politics into a new space that the old politicians and the old parasites and the old ways have no clue. Hang on, what's something with Jackie? So I just want to give you this. This was the headline today on the front of this left-wing rag. I wouldn't wipe me backside with it. 9 jobs, Nigel. So they're complaining that Nigel Farage is working and making 571 grand a year. So to the scum-sucking pond life that happen to be left-wing theologists, I'll just kind of give you this. They're all at it. All of them. Your lord and hero, the knight that's a prime minister, he got 100 grand's worth of freebies. He got free suits, free glasses, free everything, free clothes for his wife. And you, shite, are saying, oh, Nigel Garage is making £571,000 a year. Good luck to the boy. Good luck. But I read that and just thought, do you know, I mean, I get that they're the propaganda peddlers. That's all they are. That's all they do. They just spout utter shite. And how these newspapers keep going, because the government pays them. Who said that? Didn't see me lips move. I can hear voices, I swear. They're having a go. Farage's outside earnings dwarf common salary. Brilliant. Brilliant. Let's look at your leader, the Marxist arse in the glasses. And he gets, or has had, 100 grand's worth of freebies. Just that alone is enough to get him out of the comments. Get him gone. Get him gone. Not that I'm suggesting we have any kind of uprising, of course. I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting that the political parasites can't point the finger at somebody else and going, oh, no, they're making too much money. Of course. So why don't we say, right, everybody that works in the Houses of Parliament that happens to be a politician, one, you can't have a background in the legal industry. No, you can off. Secondly, you only earn what you earn from your ministerial or MP's pay. That's it. Any other freebies, we're sending you to jail. We're going to start building them now. And if you transgress anything, it doesn't even have to be legal or illegal. If you are on the take, Mr. Two-tier free gear Starmer, then you can go to jail because any freebie is seen as bribery in my house. So no freebies, none whatsoever. You can all foxtrot Oscar. And if you have like 100 grand's worth of them, we'll stop you going to watch Arsenal. They're shite anyway. Sunderland, how are the lads? So you and your coterie going to Madeira and jumping a 3-hour queue. No. Stand there and be a man of the people. At least David Beckham stood in the queue to see Queen Elizabeth II lying in state, unlike Scruff. It's the cold that's doing it. It's the cold. Stuart, I have your Jaeger hibiscus. It's in its usual place. Oh, I say, nothing better than the usual place, Stuart. Well, let's get to the bottom. We can go and do those later. I want to find out about Jackie. What's Jackie Glasgow been up to? Oh, herding cats. Evening herding cats. I know you've been here before. And also, before we kind of get really into it, if you're a newbie or you've not commented before, please let us know in the comment and I'll pop your cherry, baby. And if it's the first time that you're watching the channel, the live 140 this evening, then please let us know because we always like to give a warm welcome, which is more than it is outside, so to speak. English bottle cap, a freebie's not taxable. Depends. If it was me and you, oh, absolutely. They'd rip us a new one. That's very curious. And if it's the politicians, if it's all of that malarkey, then of course not. Don't be silly. That's why Starmer the Harmer can get 100 grand's worth of freebies and it not be taxable. Mind you, if he's got to pay tax, I wonder if somebody would pay it for him. Lord Ali. So, as I say, tonight we're going to talk about various things. Labour pains, we're going to talk about them. Because I just, 76% of this country, two-thirds of the country, over two-thirds, are now unhappy with this Labour government. And there are people defending them. Obviously, champagne socialists. Rich. Oh, very prescient. Bribery Act 2010. Bit of light reading of an evening. Just making me notes. Thank you very much, Rich. So what else we're going to talk about? I want to say thank you to the legendary Battenbergers because you always bring a smile and always keep the channel going. So Steve Conlon, Steve said, put this in the sweary box because it was particularly sweary on, where are we, Wednesday. Sadly, that's why the bishop had to come across because my mouth was particularly potty. So Steve says, put it in the sweary box. If only everyone watched your vlog, the world would be awake. If only, Steve. But I do appreciate your continued support and everything that you bring to the channel. Thank you, Steve. Angelic Inspirations, my favourite YouTube channel. Brilliant, Angelic Inspirations. Thank you. Really appreciate the insights and hard work that goes into this. And your kind words are very much appreciated. Angelic Inspirations. And Rich, loving the late one, Adrian. I know, nearly 3 hours. Bloody hell, what's going on Wednesday? Somebody put something in my hibiscus. Stuart. And Stuart, as ever, for your very kind support. And yeah, we are quite proud of that. Stuart says, well done on 9,000 subscribers. I mean, it's amazing. It's wonderful. And some of the stuff that we do in these lives, it's amazing how we do the lives, love the community, love everybody that's here, part of it. And then we kind of just clip it up and blimey, all the views and 9,000. The one piece of data that I hold quite dear is that YouTube have said previously that 99% of all YouTube channels, and there's millions of them, tens, hundreds of millions of them, that 99% of all YouTube channels don't make 10,000 subs. Johnny Ray, thank you. And thank you for your kind words. So 9K, we're only 1,000 away from 10K. Hopefully that will happen at some point in the future. But we prefer to focus on the value that we bring and the insight that we bring. And we hope that everything else will just follow along. So we'll get to 10,000 subs. And there's only 1% of YouTube channels, according to YouTube, that makes that. And so we'll be very proud if and when we make it. And the other thing is the views. I mean, it all just keeps going up. And all we do is we try on these lives to bring you some insight. Oh, and Jackie, every time I say Jackie Glasgow, it's Jackie Glasgow. I say Jackie Glasgow because that's how they pronounce it in Glasgow. Oh, Lord Tucker of the 69. I'm sharing lots on Facebook now. Or Kazukin, because he's pooped his pants. I know, because and thank you, Rich, because before I came on. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Before I started this live, Mark Zuckerberg's done a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan, and I was going to try and watch it this afternoon just to kind of get some insight. So I'm not going to be able to watch it until maybe tomorrow or Tuesday. So I will talk about it on Wednesday. But Jackie Glasgow, Happy New Year, says Jackie, saved on fag, so have a beer on me. Oh, you're far too kind. I have had what can only be described as a bit of a telling off from the bishop. I'm not going to bash the bishop this evening, although it was quite traumatic. But the bishop was, I think he was in a bit of a good mood because he said, Adrian, do you think any of the parishioners would like some bishop's finger? And I said, Your Excellency, you offering a bishop's finger? He said, well, yes. Is there anything wrong with that? I said, well, we've got the altar wine, but I don't think they're aware of how strong and light-headed it would make them if they had a bishop's finger. So I said, well, Your Eminence, if you want, I'll ask the congregation. If they fancy a bishop's finger, then you'll be available for them, and you are quite happy to avail yourself for a thick bishop's finger. What will the blue nun say? She's out in the cucumber patch sowing next year's harvest. But well, there you go. We have an offer of a bishop's finger if you so wish. I mean, the bishop did say it with a glint in his eye. So, I have my doubts about where he was going with that. But we are non-denominational. We are a very broad kirk. We don't judge. We don't say, whatever faith, denomination, everyone's welcome into the body of the kirk. So I don't think he was... hang on. Oh, the moderator's having a word with somebody. Fisticuffs at dawn. So, I mean, he didn't want any Battenberg this week. So, we're in the body of the kirk. Shall we? Oh, I think we shall. But after that offer of a bishop's finger to any regular in the body of the kirk, just so long as we don't make a mess of anybody's cassock, because there's nothing worse than stains, as in Captain Pugwash, semen stains, seemingly untrue. Napoleon blown apart, welcome to the body of the Kirk, sir. So we'll start with a perennial subject. Shall we talk about the BBC? This may be quite involved simply because I've done my research. And from my time at the BBC, I am aware of some former work colleagues working on something called the Charter. The Charter is every 10 years, and it's the funding of the BBC from the government. So the current system is that the government pulls in all the license fees from me and you, anybody else that gets nailed for the license fee. Hang on, thank you, Reverend. Des Ashton, why are you wearing the wifey's hoodie? I thought we were mates, Des. This is my Peruvian hoodie, as you can tell by the llama, and as you can tell from the hoodie, it keeps me bloody warm. Because, well, I thought about wearing 2 t-shirts to the live, but I am sure I would have been the talk of the body of the Kirk, and the bishop would have to come and give me another dressing down, or dressing up for the weekends, or I keep saying to him, here, the dude upstairs is the one that can judge me, not you, Your Eminence. And he's like, well, while I'm here, I can. Hang on. Oh, I say, I think the moderator has kicked things off. So the BBC. So the way it works, the way the BBC funding works, the government pulls all the license fees in and puts it into a central pot, and then says to the BBC, BBC, here's your money. Do we get any brown envelopes? Any kickbacks? And the BBC, go, thank you. I nearly said something there, which I shouldn't have said, and probably would have got me into a lot of legal trouble. So I am going to dodge this particular minefield very carefully. But the Charter, that's the agreement for the funding, runs out at the end of 2027. So the current funding is 24 months, or ending in 24 months. So does the BBC have 24 months to save its soul? The income from the license fee is falling. Scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. And I will be mentioning these scandals in just a little while. You could say, Hugh Edwards, that's the biggie. That's the biggie. Well, not quite, but still a biggie. There's Clive Myrie, moonlighting and not declaring. You tart. And then there's what I believe, local radio. I have worked for BBC Local Radio. Do you know anyone working for the BBC, if they sort of reach national radio level, and whatever they're paid at national radio, if they then leave national radio and go to local BBC radio, they still get paid national radio wages? Oh, you didn't know that, did you? It may be many things. I can't call it corrupt, but it looks a bit skew-whiffy to me. So you reach a national level, and then if you go and present programs on a local level, not on a national level, you still get paid your national wages. And there were few of them. So in the future, I have said previously that everyone will have their own YouTube channel. Social media is going that you will have a profile. You can't use nom de plumes. You're going to have to use your real name because they want to know what you're posting, unless you've got a VPN, of course. And I believe that what is happening is that the local BBCs will transition into regional radio stations. So you'll kind of cut half of them. Is there 40-odd BBC local radio stations? And if you look at Northwest, Northeast, Scotland is Scotland. It's an independent nation. You'll have sort of East Midlands, and then southeast, southwest, bit of land, and a bit of down at the bottom, Sussex and the like. So you will end up with regional BBC stations because they can't continue to use as much money as they are using locally with nobody listening. And I saw somewhere that the average, use TV viewer rather than radio listener, the average BBC TV viewer are in their 60s. But there's this sort of dive for younger audience from the BBC when the younger audience is not there. They're away watching YouTube or being on social media or watching however they consume their media. They're not going to the BBC for it. The only time I would hazard a guess that the BBC gets major viewership and listenership is if there is a national event. So say the Queen dying or Diana dying or there being a national event. That's when, if I may be so bold, a lot of people go to the BBC to consume their media. Because commercial radio is now virtually, well, global killed off local radio this week. And now all of those radio stations, of which I presented on a few, whether it be heritage stations like TFM or Metro or regional brands like Heart, they're all going. The local output's going, they're becoming a national brand. And I have said to you previously that radio in this country is going to end up being national brands, because I was party to a speech given at Century 106 back in the day, which is now Heart 106 in the East Midlands. And we were told that they were looking for national brand advertising money. Less money in the regions and less money locally. So that's what they were doing. So I with this new charter being negotiated between the politicians and the high Hegians at the BBC, I believe they'll go to regional radio. They've already got branding in the Northeast, radio for the Northeast. And maybe extending it to 3 or 4 hour shows each. They can't keep that up. Simply because 3 hour radio show, if you are doing it properly, is like running a marathon. 4 hours, that's too much. You can't do a 4 hour radio show. You're absolutely knackered. You can barely speak in the last hour. So I'm going to ask you some questions as we go through the live tonight. Initially with the BBC. As a creative output, do you love the BBC or do you hate it? Is there sufficient coming out of the BBC for you to have a warm, fuzzy feeling? Obviously not incontinence, but a warm, fuzzy feeling. Well, I can't even bloody say it. And you go to the BBC for certain things. So it's going to be 1, love, 2, hate. They are strong words, but they are a very fine line between both. So 1, do you love the BBC and everything that it contains? Or 2, do you think it's a waste of bloody money? TV license cost is now 15 quid a month. Let's have a look. There's not much love for the BBC. Some good programs, but most far too woke. I don't think I've seen a single one. There might have been at the beginning of the votes, but it's all twos. All twos. Now, maybe it's we are of like mind. Maybe this has become an echo chamber. No hate, but dislike immensely. £174.50 from April. 15 quid a month. DC, good to see you back in the body of the cook, DC. So the BBC's been around for 102 years. They've had a charter since 1946. Now, Lisa Nandy, who is the culture secretary, she's been instructed by Sir Keir Starmer to look at the charter for 2027 and 2037. They're looking for longevity. They want to future-proof the BBC. And it had been intended to abolish the BBC licence. And the suggestion is, there's a few suggestions going around. Now, call me a cynical old tart, if you will, but I know the way that PR works. I've worked in PR previously, and I know that they will float an idea. They'll just put it out there very gently to see who bites and what kind of response they get. And to say, oh, we might fund the BBC from general taxation. They want to see what the chatter is. And like if they looked at this channel tonight, it's pretty much all twos. There'll be the odd one, the odd 1.5, because there's some programs. I mean, even the sport. But the suggestion is to pay for the BBC in general taxation. So that means, say, like the 3 billion. So the cost of the BBC to the taxpayer, the license fee payer, it's about £3.7 billion per year. That's what the government gets in for the BBC. And they dole it out at various levels to various places within the BBC, not their commercial arm, obviously. But the license fee is the same as general taxation, simply because the license fee is just another tax, in the way that the council tax is a council tax. So why don't they call it the BBC tax? Let's just be straight up and down about it. Now, what they're saying is, if they decide to pay for the BBC from the general taxation fund, all the money they get through from me and you and or the pensioners, then they'll get it from the big amorphous tax bulge. Nothing better than a good bulge. They'll pay for it from the general taxation. What they'll also do is they'll turn the BBC into a mutual organisation. So what's a mutual organisation? A mutual organisation is to enable the general populace, if you wish, to own the BBC. So what they would do, a bit like, you know, how John Lewis is owned by the workers of John Lewis, and how they get a bonus. I'm not laughing at John Lewis getting a bonus. I'm just thinking, if it's a mutual organisation, do we ever get any money back? And how would they divide that up? So they would generally take the money to fund the BBC from the general taxation and turn it into a mutual organisation, and give direct control and ownership to the general public. That's me and you. I've said previously that all of the programs that they've made with the license fee should be in ownership by the general populace. So whether it's Only Fools and Horses, but they sell you DVDs, so you can have something that you've already paid for. Don't get that. Well, I do. Greedy feckers. And so all of the archive, all of the broadcasts, all of the stuff that we know and remember, Faulty Towers, Dad's Army, or the stuff that is ingrained in the very fabric of who we are and who the country is, then it should be owned by me and you. Now, most people thought the charter would be renewed for another 10 years, and that would be seen as the least worst option. But if we look at the data, now, I keep saying now this evening, I have no idea why. The BBC's funding, as I've already said just a moment ago, that the licence fee raises 3.74 billion. That's the equivalent to a 0.5p tax increase for everybody in this country. 0.5p. Now, I don't know whether that's 0.5p or whether it's 0.5p a week or 0.5p a month. Just the data that I've looked at, it's a 0.5p in tax increase. So that will be better than paying £174.50 from April. At least Dick Turpin wore a mask. Now, the data suggests that 80% of households pay the licence fee. So there's 20% that doesn't. I'm not quite sure what's happened to 10%, because there's only 10% of all licence fee payers evade the licence fee. But 500,000, 500,000 people didn't pay last year. It is said that Starmer, the Prime Minister, is aware and wants a long-term solution. So I will guarantee you that they're floating this and will use focus groups to see what the appetite is in the country for what they're doing. Now, only 9% of people polled in a YouGov poll favoured funding by general taxation. So that was 9% agreed with the general taxation route, 91% voted other ways, less than 10%. I've said to you earlier, funding for Ukraine would pay for all of this, all of it, every year, until we get a new government. So they're sort of, the BBC is very left-leaning, and it's the propaganda arm of the government. Now, if the BBC is left-leaning and the government is left-leaning, so where are they going to go? Where's the attack? It's going to be with the right-leaning. Common sense, really. Even Elon Musk could buy it. 3.74 billion. He'd pay 40 odd billion for Twitter and call it X. So he could afford the BBC. I mean, imagine the savings. The Department of Government Expenditure. Can you imagine if we had a Doge over here? Somebody that could be trusted, like me. Right, you're sacked. You can't do that. Well, I can. We haven't got any money. So you can stay, but we can't pay you. Brilliant. Thanks very much. The licence fee payers dropped below 25 million people in 2021. It's now below 24 million. So they've lost almost a million licence fee payers. In 2023, the last known data was 34,000 people were prosecuted for non-payment of the TV licence fee. And of those 34,000 that were prosecuted, 73% were female. So that, for me, looks like they're targeting a particular part of society. 34,000 prosecuted for non-payment, 73% were females. But if females want equality, so as I say, what they're suggesting happens with the BBC is the same as John Lewis, the National Trust, and building societies. It's like a mutual trust, a mutual organisation. But the BBC are just obsessed with attracting the younger audience. Why don't they super serve their natural audience? The youngers are not interested. The 16 to 24s, they're just not interested in watching the BBC unless it is a national event, because they go to the BBC because they don't want to watch the adverts on the commercial stations. So have the youth walked away and no longer interested in the woke BBC? I mean, if you look at, take Doctor Who as an example, that was the natural home of young males. Ordinarily, because this sceptred isle and the indigenous population has a little pink hue, it's a little more diverse nowadays, but it was always from the 60s, maybe the 50s, it was always the young white male that was the audience of Doctor Who. And then they tried to get women, girls, as fans, and now they've just ruined it. They brought the bloody Americans in. The Americans don't even understand irony. So they've ruined Doctor Who, and all of that. It took Christopher Eccleston to come in and make it edgy and make it cool, and now I've not watched it. I mean, I'm not their core audience, but I am. I used to be their core audience, and I would have taken that with me as one of my favourite programmes. So the average viewer of the BBC, we're talking BBC telly, is in their 60s. And they're trying to attract 16-year-olds. You can't have 60-year-olds and 16-year-olds watching the same thing unless it is that national event or a sporting event, not Sports Personality of the Year, obviously. Now, Ofcom reported last year that the 16 to 24-year-olds spend 5% of their screen time at home watching the BBC. I mean, that's almost within statistical error. Last year, we had all of these scandals sort of percolating to the top. We had the Strictly scandals. We had the Greg Wallace scandal He was back on the telly the other night, by the way. He was interviewed a couple of years ago, and they repeated something. And there's all these do-gooders, namby-pamby pingo liberals going, oh, my God, Greg Wallace was back on the telly. Oh, here, man, just give your head a wobble. So we have the Strictly scandals, the Greg Wallace scandals, MasterChef, if you wish. The Hugh Edwards, that was a doozy. That was proper. That was a proper scandal. Mucky old tart. And it was actually a disaster for the BBC. Utter disaster, because they couldn't control it. The whole nation sort of turned around and went, who? Who's that then? Because nobody knew who it was at the beginning until his wife came out and went, yeah, it's me hubby. Well, she didn't even take his second name, unless Edwards is his showbiz name, and it's Hugh Edwards Flint or something. So that was a particular disaster, and the repercussions, the ripples from Hugh Edwards are going to continue for a long time. Actually, it might do for the BBC coming up to the charter renewal in 24 months. But there were other scandals. The Hugh Edwards scandal had, and I'm not going to name them out of courtesy, but there were so many people that were named who were innocent. And there were some very intelligent and articulate YouTubers who were, because I saw the videos, and I thought, how can you say that? Any surety? What evidence do you have? Oh, sure enough, that video was deleted, PDQ. And so far, in January 2025, there's been nothing so far that's as an output from the BBC as far as Russell Brand's time, 2006 to 2008 to the BBC. There's nothing currently coming out about Tim Westwood. And I will tell you, both Russell and Tim, and I've met Tim Westwood, both of whom they deny any allegations, any and all allegations. Innocent until proven guilty. But were you aware that sources are saying that the Westwood investigation has already cost the BBC over £3 million in licence fee payers' money? Do you know how many licence fees that is? I'm not toying with you, I'll tell you. 19,000 licence fees. So the Westwood investigation, his time at the BBC, has cost the BBC over £3 million of your money. And a bit of mine, but not the BBC's, because they get it from the licence fee. So what now? YouGov committed a poll and found that advertising is the most favoured model. Advertising, the most favoured funding model. So the most favoured is not the Netflix model, it's advertising. But really, do you want advertising on the BBC? I think literally YouGov have gone, what do you reckon? Yeah, put it in the wind. Which way's the wind blowing? Will there be a future without the BBC? Well, Lisa Nandy may publish objectives for what the charter should achieve. So this next charter, they're working on it for the next 2 years. I'm sure there'll be some output from both the the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, and all the BBC, the high Hegians there, who do nothing but draw extraordinary wages. I'm sure they'll say at some point in 2026, 25, 26, did I say the end of 27? I did. So it's got less than, apologies, not 24 months, 36 months from now. 35 if you want to be a pedant. But would there be a future without the BBC? And as I said earlier, when I was talking about this, what on earth would the BBC do with its archive of broadcast programmes? Who would they belong to? Would they belong to a national archive? Would they, because the BBC technically own them, but it should be the people of Grand Britannia, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. We've all contributed to the BBC, so surely they belong to us because our money's funded it. And I wonder if there's an appetite for just abolishing the BBC licence fee and then just put a couple of different options on the table. But I agree with Vic's text. The BBC was legendary, 100%. So how do they carve up this particular meal? because there will be agendas all over the place. I mean, the wokerati will want the BBC to continue with the licence fee because it's easy money, money for old rope. I mean, I said to you on Wednesday, Blue Peter's gone, and there are these either programs or shows, if you want to call them that are part of the fabric of this nation. They make us who we are as Brits. Now, some people will go, well, you know, we can go back 1,000 years and go to King Athelstan from the late 900s and all the way through. We've had the court system because of Athelstan, and a lot of the things that we have today as the fabric of the nation came out of 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago. So they may abolish the license fee, but there'll be people within the BBC that don't want to queer their pitch. They have a nice wage. They have an easy life. They don't work too hard, and they don't want the BBC license fee abolishing. But I've already put to you that somebody's just said, I mean, you are commenting, and I really appreciate all the comments. Somebody's just said that the BBC is looking to sell off its archive to the tech companies to train AI in its large language model. Because if you think about it, the AI is really in its infancy. So if you try to, just before Christmas, we as a family went out to one of these, and I mentioned it on either one of the videos or one of the lives. We went to see Faulty Towers, but it was Faulty Towers with Sybil, Basil, and Manuel, and it was a kind of a 70s menu. We had carrot and something coriander soup, and then we had chicken in a basket. It was all kind of 70s stuff, and they did the best bits of Faulty Towers. So, you know, they did the goose stepping, they did the Basil, and they did the I know nothing. They did all that, and it was a beautiful reminder of, in my view, very innocent days. The 70s had its troubles, whether it was Northern Ireland or the first miners' strike or the power strike or the politicians not having a clue. Mind you, that's kind of a constant in English and British life, but I remember it being so much more innocent, and going there, it was all one particular audience. It would have been the audience and the families who would have been around in the 70s. So turning the BBC into a mutual organisation, we're going to seemingly lose our heritage. We're going to lose everything that the BBC has recorded to the tech companies for large language models because they want AI to rule the world. Well, as I've said before, what do we need politicians for? What, decision makers? AI can do that. And if they know what Faulty Towers means to us, and or Dad's Army, and or all the other great comedy shows, there's no funny now. I mean, is Mrs. Brown's Boys the best the BBC's got for comedy? Is comedy going to have a renaissance in 2025? I do hope so, because the left wing, they're about as funny as piles. So, a mutual organisation which we all own. Can you imagine? So that's where we are with the BBC. There's the data that my research has uncovered. That's where we're going. That's what is happening. And my hope, my personal hope, is that the decision makers understand that the heritage that the BBC has in its archives makes us who we are. Back in the day when there was only two channels, BBC One, Two, and ITV. And do the 16 to 24-year-old demographic want anything to do with the BBC? No. Don't even want to listen to the radio. Why would they want to listen to radio when they can be super served by the streaming services, whichever one they choose? And like Mrs. Brown's Boys, there isn't anything behind that that's coming through where you think that's pretty funny. I mean, there's some stuff that the BBC puts out, and I just think, who decided on this? Why hasn't the BBC given its own slow horses? British actors, British storyline, possibly British writers, set in London, and the BBC didn't do anything like that. I don't know of anything that I would go to the BBC for that I would overstep Disney, Netflix, Prime Video. All the streaming services have got a foothold now. And we now Netflix and chill. That's just in the lexicon of modern language. It will be very interesting to see what the BBC comes up with. Are they just going to fall on their own sword? Bread was also funny, but it was like 30 years ago. I mean, if you go back to the 80s and 90s and some of the stuff that we used to watch, the kids are not watching it now. We're not even sitting down as a family anymore. I mean, what's the old saying? The family that eats together stays together. Well, look at what we're doing. We're all on our... Well, I'm using a very broad brushstroke here, but we're using our phones more to watch stuff and interact with the world at large, whether it be iPlayers, various machinery, hardware, and does your family ever sit down to watch anything other than possibly Christmas? And whether it's the King's speech or the Queen's speech, that used to be the rallying point for the whole nation. 3 o'clock, Queen's speech. Charles the Weak. I only watched his speech this year for research for the channel. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched it. But religiously, every single year, I watched Queen Elizabeth II and her speech. Just to find out what she'd been up to. Whether we were going to invade anywhere else, whether the empire was continuing to expand. I'm joking, I'm being facetious. But I used to watch her all the time. Charlie, I can't even remember what he said, let alone made a speech. Will that all change with the passing of the Guard? And as another tangent, I will say to you that I wish King Charles the Weak long life and good health. But a lot of psychics at the turn of the year are saying, and they're being very gentle about it. There's going to be a changing of the Guard. I mean, who would want to be the longest serving Prince of Wales in the world ever? And then you get into the main job and then you're not... I mean, there's Prince William. He'll be the shortest serving Prince of Wales in the world ever. And then hopefully he'll make a great king. But as we will talk about as we get into things, because we are only... So let me give you an insight. It's just a feeling I've got that the most powerful man in the world is being inaugurated in 8 days' time, Monday, January 20th. I wonder how many of the world leaders that would ordinarily be in Davos for a day or two before the World Economic Forum starts, how many of those leaders will be at that inauguration in America? And then how quickly do they get out of America and fly over to Europe to attend the World Economic Forum? Curiouser and curiouser. Obviously, the Donald's not going to be there. And Nigel Garage, he's putting on a party, an after inauguration party for the Donald and his mates and Elon Musk and all the lads. And I know that the Donald is teetotal. He doesn't drink because he had an alcoholic brother and that put him off alcohol for life. So 78-year-old, the Donald, 78-year-old, and he becomes president. He's got 4 years. Look at the state of Poopy Pants, President Brown Trousers. Look at, I mean, he can barely string a coherent sentence together, unless they've got, obviously, the actors wearing masks to look like him. No, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. The guy just like, needs a nappy and loves ice cream. Can't ride a bike because he falls over from those. He can't go over to, was it VE Day or D-Day commemorations in France, standing next to Macron. You can see Macron's face going, "Ooh, I say, what's that?" And Jill Biden go, Joe, you're on. I thought I told you to put that bung up your backside. Did you forget? Huh? Oh, Joe, man, come with me. Yeah, you might have to walk like John Wayne for a while, but at least we'll get you to the toilet and we'll get you cleaned up. And there's Macron. I mean, what do? The elderly, the infirm. Talking of which I was, Soul Rebel says, watched Dick Emery on YouTube the other day. Really great. Jules D. Stuart Trump said he never had alcohol in his life. Fair play to him. Oh, yeah, fair play to him. Because sometimes there was stuff that makes you turn to drink. And fags. Oh, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. Ray Norton, the Donald doesn't take a wage for being president. I know, but Brown Trousers did. Oh, definitely on the grift, permanently. Des Ashton. So glad to hear Ursula von der Leyen didn't get an invite. Oh, she's got a face sucking on 15 lemons, wouldn't shift. Can you imagine? I'm in charge. I'm powerful. You're not going to the inauguration of the most powerful man in the world, are you, Ursula? No. Sends a very prescient message. Amalia, you've missed it all. Evening all. English bottle cap. JC turned water into wine. I know. And if you do quantum touch, which is an energetic healing modality from America, one of the things that we my teacher did, brought some really rancid red wine into the group when we were doing this quantum touch, first degree, and said, right, daddy, do this technique, daddy, right, taste that wine. The wine tasted fantastic. Tasted like battery acid. 3 minutes earlier, quantum touch turns crap wine into nice wine. Into very tasty wine, to be fair. Kathy Harper, hit the likes, everybody. Yes, there's a couple of, 260 odd and 124 likes. Ah, wait, man, tough audience. All that research I did for the BBC for you, just so you could get an insight. So that when the politicians start, and the BBC start, no, we're losing money. You know what to do. Oh, I say, Meghan Markle has cancelled her Netflix show as wildfires wreak havoc in her area, county. Can I just pause before I get into labour pains, as I've called it? I saw her. Now, I haven't seen her for donkey's years. I have my own very pointed thoughts on young Meghan. Do I go into them here? How many surrogates did you use, Meghan? Just asking for a friend, because it's all over the internet, just asking for a friend. And did your PR say to you, oh, right, well, get the cameras out and just go and give somebody a hug. It's like royal, honestly. It's what Kate does. I'll do it. Anything that Catherine does, I'll do it. And then she gives somebody a hug and you just think, oh, man. No class. No class. Roll the shirt sleeves up and Harry's there and Harry turns to the camera. So either A, they did it for the clicks and likes, or Harry knew there was a cameraman there filming what they were doing, or C, they were all in on it, or all three. It's just, you know, when they were doing the giving out food from the food bank. Oh, yeah, man. It's 2025 now. We've seen through it all. We've got social media that doesn't ban us for speaking the truth. So we can see right through these two ne'er-do-wells, in my view. If she come anywhere near me and wanted to give me a cuddle after all the stuff that's going on in LA, people literally losing everything. I mean, can you imagine you're being told by the emergency service, get out, get out, get out? I mean, what would you take? What would it be? Would it be your passport? Would it be your jewelry, if anything? What would you grab and take with you? The clothes that you're wearing and the most valuable stuff to you. What would you take? I mean, can you imagine the stuff that we hoard? I couldn't take my newspaper archive with me. Clothes that I'd be wearing in. I mean, I wouldn't need a coat. Bloody warm. The U-Boat rule. Grab me tea bags. Gene Psychic says, myself and loved ones. English bottle cap. Everybody needs a big cuddle. Yeah, so long as you tell her you're not on a bloody yacht. What do you mean by that, Adrian? Yeah, I'm afraid I'm letting the mask slip. I will take me Battenberg. My pets, says Manda Sky. My cat, says Jackie Glasgow. Grab me photos, Paulie Galtieri. Yeah, in the field. Priorities right. Your Battenberg stash. Dogs, says Leah. Cat, says Tom Harneys. Grab the dog and leave the wife with the hose pipe. Ray Norton, priorities, definitely. So you take your pets. I mean, some of the reportage that's coming out of LA is breathtaking. The aerial view of the wildfires at night and the actors coming out saying, oh, I've lost everything. And the insurance companies, obviously along the Palisades, saying, we're not going to insure you. Why would they do that? Like 2 or 3 months before the fires hit. And they're saying that there's some arson. Obviously a Labour Party fire. And you can get a SanDisk. Put all your photographs on that. Yeah, Gene Psychic. Yeah, absolutely. Would you take your computer? I'd have my phone, but what would I take? I mean, literally, it would be a grab bag, wouldn't it? But then again, if you knew that there were fires around your area, would you just sit there going, no, it's not gonna hit our house? So you'd have like 24 hours or 48 hours. Loads of people left the area. They just got out. Would you try and chance it? And there's a new sort of theory coming out about the houses, because people are asking, how comes the trees didn't get burned down? How comes certain things weren't touched? And somebody said, well, smart meters, and this is for future reference, if ever you need it, because I steadfastly refuse to have a smart meter, because then I'm trapped. I just have to take what the energy companies tell me, and I can't dispute it. So I'm not a fan of any house or home that I may move into at any future point having a smart meter. But they're saying that the smart meter will burst into flames at a particular temperature and then burns at an insanely high temperature, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of degrees. Was it 14 or 1500 degrees? And what that then does is it heats up the copper sort of connections to the house, and the fire travels along. Look, I'm not a scientist. I don't know the exact technical terms for this, but the copper wire from a smart meter can conduct the heat and the fire, and that's how homes have been set on fire and some of the surrounding area hasn't been touched, because it's obviously gone underground. I do know from my survival training with ninjutsu that you don't put a fire in the ground. Some people would sort of dig a fire pit. Well, fire can travel underground. It doesn't have to stay on top. It can travel underground. So some places we've been where, we might have wanted to do just get a fire away for a bit of camaraderie and a bit of warmth through the night. We were told many, many, many times you can't dig a pit and put a fire in a pit, because the fire might actually travel underground to elsewhere, and it could be hundreds of meters away for all you know. So the fire in LA could actually be traveling underground as well as over the top, and it could be smart meters that's inflaming and just building the fires. And I never knew that. But that may come out over the next few days in LA. Glasgow, the residents also voted for the forest floors not to be cleared, so there was loads of tinder waiting to combust. Oh no! I mean, I know that the fire department, their funding was cut by, was it 17.5 million, and some of their resources were actually given away to the Ukrainians. They gave all this stuff that they could have used in these fires to the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians were kitted out with some really smart stuff. What's that, Vixtex? La Brea tar pits. Is that the fire moving through underground so it can't be seen? Yes, Tom Harney says, as long as there's a good oxygen supply, it can go anywhere. Mad Mike UK, there's a deserted town in the USA where there is a fire burning underground to this day. They talked about 9/11, didn't they? That where the underground stations were, at the base of all the buildings, the fires burned for days and days and days and days. So also you've got Governor Gavin Newsom literally bricking it, because all these people in power weren't making great decisions. And what's the mayor? I think she's fired the fire chief. But everybody's standing around. No homes, no houses. All of their possessions gone, apart from their grab bag. And everybody's just, they're bewildered. They don't know what this is because they have no reference. The celebs are coming out. I saw Jamie Lee Curtis come out, not out, just out. She came out and said, some of my friends' homes have been burned to the ground, been razed to the ground. Some of the cafes and the retail outlets locally have all been razed to the ground. They're not around anymore. And the insurance companies have said, what did Pauline say? I was going to pick that one out. Geothermal heat, the mantle and the core already hotter than any of our surface or near surface combustions. But the thing is, it's almost apocalyptic. It's biblical what's happened. Apocalyptic. Some people are saying, oh yeah, well the house was worth $7.5 or $10 million or $12 million, and you just think, how do you come back from that? Does it just give you a sense of realization that, well, money's not everything? Does it give you that lesson in life where friends and family are more important than a £12 million house? Or is that the status that you need in Hollywood? And they say that some of the wildfires got up into the hills, and it's just, there was at one point there was 8 is the number that I had, but from viewing it looked like more than that. But it's just eviscerated whole swathes of land. And they didn't have water to hand for the fire. Oprah Winfrey offered her wardrobe. It was turned down by a charity. Too many gags. I'm not going to take the opportunity. Paulie, right, okay. Yeah, Rich says, I could have made a fortune selling Kevlar house covers. You would think that in that area, LA, especially California, where they're expecting a big earthquake at some point. I don't wish that on them, but all of the scientists are saying at some point there's going to be a massive earthquake in California because it's right on the fault. And they're getting fire. Now, has this been set erroneously? Is it just one of those things? Someone said earlier that they didn't take all of the loose brush from the forests, and that has acted as kindling. Remember the song Babylon's Burning? Babylon's burning. You'll burn the streets, you'll burn your houses with anxiety. Yeah, I remember that, Andrew James. Was it the Ruts? Babylon's Burning? 120 million dead trees around LA. No wonder the fire spread so quickly. They were talking about it taking seconds to move hundreds of yards. The wind was whipping it all up, and it's horrendous. As I say, I do have friends out there, and I'm going to try and contact them tomorrow, see if they'll kind of give us a sit rep, and tell us the reality of what has gone on, rather than wait for the mainstream legacy media to either propagate lies or propagate an agenda, propaganda. I know my friends will give it to me straight. English bottle cap harp whipped up the wind. Oh, right, that harp. Tom Hanks has probably lost his collection of red shoes. Andrew James, he's probably also lost his collection of typewriters, but I know what you're saying with red shoes, you're on. Gene Psychic, but a spark was supposed to go 45 miles with the wind in opposite direction. Sounds odd. I agree, completely agree. It's, when talking about the BBC earlier, it's a global event and people want that information. But how do you disseminate truth from lie or truth from untruth? And how do we work out whether, the Hollywood was quaking in its boots because of what Diddy had done and the information that they had? Somebody saying, oh, well, all the evidence to do with the Diddy parties is gone because Diddy's place is burnt down. The pictures that I saw wasn't actually Diddy's place. It just fits that particular narrative. And it may make it more difficult, but can't really talk about the case per se. I don't think America has something similar to sub judice. But if you have that obliterating LA for hundreds, if not thousands of miles, the police stations will have been created and built so that a wildfire or wildfires wouldn't affect the police station or anybody in the cells or however they have American police stations built. But it is one of, certainly for the last few days, it's one of only two subjects that generally is being spoken about, because it's like 9/11. It just takes your breath away. And you look at it, and I personally, I'm sure you do, feel sorry for some of these people. And then the nastiness comes out, the poison comes out, where, oh, it's only actors. Yeah, they can afford it. Well, if your home went in the blinking of an eye, how would you feel? You don't wish that on another human being, as idiotic as they may be, and in some cases as evil as they may be. You just wouldn't. And, well, if you have a conscience, you wouldn't. And they're talking about the tunnels, and we can go all down that route, but I think it's probably, for the moment, waiting to see what comes out, because they're talking about the tunnels under the Getty Museum and under the Playboy Mansion and under Diddy's mansion and other mansions. They're talking about stuff being underground, where they've even got a Starbucks, because the very, very, very famous people don't want to go walking about. They don't want to be in a car and have, people like me go, oh, bloody hell, is that there? Yeah. They just have this tunnel system where nobody sees what they get up to. And the other subject that people are talking about, water and fire is the most destructive. Leah, thank you. Daddy keeps being told to pick up the soap. Cuban Pete. The other subject, and I'm not going to linger on this, but as you know, if you're a regular viewer of these lives, you know that I buy the newspapers every single day. 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. Do you know that the Grooming gang story has not been in the newspapers to any great degree? And I just think, hang on a second. I can't say this and put it in a video on YouTube. It's not allowed. The R word, grooming for that matter. And I look at this and my time in PR, my time in the media, whether it be radio or telly or magazine editor or writer for newspapers, you can just tell when it's being managed by a long stretch. And you just think it literally is. LA and the grooming gangs are the only two major stories that everybody's talking about. On the one hand, people are saying, oh, it's terrible for the people of LA. And on the other hand, people are outraged, angry, annoyed and upset by what is happening to our children in this country. Not allowed to talk about it in the House of Commons. The MPs, they're not. So the political classes, the parasitic classes, are not talking about it. The newspapers are not finding. Now, ordinarily, the first thing that would happen is that a newspaper would get onto its newsroom and say, right, get all the journalists out there for this, say Madeleine McCann, foreign country, Portugal. They had journalists on the ground within hours, hiring private planes, private jets to get them out there, get on the ground and find out what's going on. Because it was the zeitgeist of the country, the particular thinking. And now the whole country is talking about it, and yet the journalists are not doing any digging and not doing the story. By now, in say the last week or so, there would have been journalists everywhere, all the northern towns. They're not only talking about there may be 6 towns where this is centered, they're talking 50 towns, if not more. And yet, this is a perfect opportunity for you to watch the mainstream media, the legacy media. The TV's not reporting it. The newspapers are not reporting it. Nobody's talking about it because that evil entity that is the Labour Party, because they are the ruling class at the moment, they are the government, they're not allowing anything to be discussed. And I said to you on Wednesday, after watching 3 days of manoeuvring by the political classes, whether it was Justin Trudeau saying, bye, I'm off, yeah, I've had enough, or Sir Keir Starmer trying to do his NHS speech. Yeah, this is what we're going to do. But the journalists would ask him about it, but are not sending, the newspapers are not sending their journalists out to dig up the stories. Someone quite rightly said that, look, if you've been abused or raped or been part of this situation, you possibly wouldn't want it dragged up again. I get that. I do understand that and get that. But there are two people who want to tell their story to the newspapers, and the newspapers are not touching them with a barge pole. So what I would ask you is this. If it was you, would you want to be heard? After all these years and all the things that you went through, some of these girls, because it's been going on for decades, are now grown women, possibly married, possibly with their own kids. Do you not think that they would like to have their story told? Do you not think that after everything that they've been through, they want to be heard and believed? Because I'm sure there are some of these girls that had a horrible, horrible, horrible time. Some people wouldn't have believed them. And the vindication, maybe a decade or 2 or 3 down the line of, yes, we hear you. How powerful would that be? And these stories, they could fill every single newspaper from now to Timbuktu. Simply because the journalists would be uncovering truths, seemingly. But then again, they're not, because they're not even on the case. And I do believe that I don't want to get embroiled in sub judice or the process of law, because I want to see law seen to be done. So we're not going to mention other things. But in this case, all these victims, It's possibly the biggest national scandal there has ever been in this sceptred isle. And we have history here for thousands of years. We've had some horrible stuff happen to us as a collective. There was thalidomide in the 60s. And yet, no one's allowed to talk about it. I think the adult way and the appropriate way and proportionate way is to have a national conversation. I'm not sure, maybe you are, maybe you're not. I'm not sure another national inquiry is needed. But there needs to be truth told. There needs to be an adult conversation. And the victims need to be heard. Look at the Hillsborough 96. Look at Hillsborough, how long that took to come out. And look at thalidomide. Look at how long that come out to be acknowledged. All of the things, the nasty, horrible things that happen to us as a collective, as well as individuals, they bury it. Don't allow it to come out, because it appears that there are some very powerful people that are involved in lots of different ways. But it's our kids, man. I know we've talked about horrible things happening in LA, but if it was one of my children, and I don't have any, sadly, but if it was one of my children and somebody decided to do something silly, and I'm using that word lightly because emotionally I don't even want to go there, I wouldn't be responsible for my actions. And I don't care how much jail time I'd do, I wouldn't be responsible for it. And I'm sure that's why a lot of people are angry. Because we're not allowed to talk about it as adults. We're not allowed to get to our own point of understanding and context that gives us some kind of succor to this situation. It's the understanding and context that a lot of people need, because they don't understand how people could do this to children. Police forces are finished. I said to you on a live, I think it was possibly Wednesday or last Sunday, I told you that the police were finished. And there was a time where G4S would take the periphery responsibilities of the police, whether it was, the cells or conveying prisoners around, or the stuff where they could free up police to be response officers, so that if there was crime, they could investigate the crime. Because all the police are the evidence gatherers. They investigate, gather the evidence, give it to the CPS. Yeah, him. My record speaks for itself. Mate, there were grooming gangs on your watch that you didn't do anything with. And then they tried to, politicians obviously, the next guy that was DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions for the CPS, he said, oh yes, we prosecuted 550. Starmer didn't. And Savile, file 13. Savile's file went across Starmer's desk. File 13. He still has not given an appropriate answer, in my view, to why Savile was never brought to book. And he knew about it. Insufficient evidence. Flimsy was one word. Now, with AI nowadays, you don't know whether what you're watching is genuine or whether it's been done by some computer whiz kid that knows how to do prompts for AI. But the police are cooked. And I just want to, if I can, stop for a moment and just say a police officer in North Yorkshire lost her life today in tragic circumstances. And I don't want to speculate at all. But I know that the emergency services, whether it's the fire brigade or the NHS or the police or any of the emergency services, sometimes they get a bad rep. But this police officer was not on duty. And there'd been some kind of collision. And she was trying to help those involved in the collision. And she was killed by an HGV. And it's not... everything that we're experiencing at the moment it just affects us to our core. We have no reference points for this anymore. It's just death, death, death everywhere. The media are reporting only death, death, death. Even in tragic circumstances like this off-duty police officer. North Yorkshire Police, the Chief Constable didn't really give a very good press conference, presser as I call them. And he was repeating himself, so I know that he's not North Yorkshire Police. He's not really, in my view, either hasn't had the training or isn't used to that kind of pressure. Live TV camera and every word will be scrutinised. But it's not about him or the force. It's about an individual. Selfless in her duty. Who said that? Rich, thank you. But it's, again, I don't want to speculate because some things may come from this situation. But imagine, you just want to help people. And some people go to work and don't come back. That's the horrible reality about society that we live in. When we started the lockdowns in 2020, March 2020, do you realise in 6 weeks it's going to be 5 years since the first lockdown? 5 years ago. And we get told this lie and this untruth and this propaganda in the media. And yet we can't have adult conversations. It would have been you'd go to the pub, maybe with your mates, or you would sit and talk about stuff. As I said, I have the last couple of nights talking about LA and talking about the gangs. And when it comes to the gangs, people are apoplectic with rage. When it comes to LA, there's a lot of empathy and compassion for those that are going through it. But I mean, I know some people watching this might not be fans of the police. That's your prerogative. But they're the first people you call when you need them. Whether or not you get a service thereafter, again, is up for an adult conversation. But G4S, the politicians, wanted to carve the police forces up all around the country because it's worth billions. And these cash cows, they want to carve them up, split them up, give them to other commercial companies so that they will make a profit from it. And they're talking about using high tech for policing. The wrong uns are always 10 steps ahead. The police have some wins, some quick wins, but ordinarily they've got to do a whole load of graft to get hold of the proper wrong uns. And don't get me started on the judiciary. Don't get me started on barristers and lawyers. So I just wanted to make you aware of what's happened today that may not be given any coverage. But knowing the way the red tops, the tabloids are now, they're not interested in actually reporting news. They want to report showbiz so that you don't wake up. Problem is, we're already awake. So any brown stuff that they stick on the front of their papers, let me give you an example. Just today's newspaper. So what do you think the current bun, the Sun, seemingly the most popular newspaper in this country? Now, let me tell you, I'm a boy that's been around the block a few times. I looked at that and I thought, you utter cretins. That's the news, because they want you to stay thick. They want you to stay uninformed. They want you to look at that and go, oh, I made me will on the phone before me heart up. Why didn't he get a bloody lawyer to do it? Why is that a story? It's not a story. Am I being... Is it Schadenfreude? Is it me just kind of not really having any empathy? Honestly, in the words of the great Chinese philosopher, it's just bullshit. Holidays for £9.50. I'll take 5, thanks very much. That's not a story, man. And yet, the biggest story, the biggest scandal, the biggest thing collectively that has happened to us as a community, as a collective, they're not even reporting. That's why they stick that kind of brown stuff on the front of the newspapers. Keep you dumb. But they can't do that because I always tell you the truth. And I always give you an insight into what's going on. Do you want some more? We'll get to... let me do the Labour thing first. But I want to get to... the Donald, because I'm going to tell you some stuff, give you some real insight as to what's going on and how. Because even these people that maybe their museums have burnt down, maybe some of their massive mansions have burnt down, they don't care. They've got so much money, doesn't matter. But I'm calling this Labour pains. You girls will know what I'm talking about, but we lads, thankfully, I've never had to suffer those. I'm going to give you 2 words. Ivor Kaplan. What do you mean? Who? Ivor Kaplan. Do you not know who Ivor Kaplan is? Let me tell you. Ivor Kaplan, what's happened to him today? Hang on. From the moderator, from the Revs Sweary Live on Wednesday last week, we have now raised enough for a body kit and some alloy wheels for the church minivan. Who's going to drive it, though? Ivor Kaplan. You probably don't know that name, but I promise you, if the mainstream legacy media are doing their job, then they will have him all over the press tomorrow. Why? Because what he's been up to is eye-watering. And you can't write this stuff, but I'm going to tell you about it. So, last week, if you're sitting comfortably, last week, Labour unleashed an attack dog, so to speak. Political speak for somebody who goes on the telly and goes, oh no, oh no, oh no. And there was this attack dog that went on to have a go at Elon Musk. Do you know who the attack was? Attack dog was? Ivor Kaplan. So, let's go down a further layer. Ivor Kaplan went on the telly as an attack dog to defend Labour, criticising Elon Musk, defending Labour's position on the grooming gangs. This is the same Ivor Kaplan who's been found posting Richard pics on X, Twitter. Can you see the irony? So he's... How can I put this? He's wanting Richard pics from other men. And he's soliciting for them on X. Remember, this is the attack dog that went into the media to attack Elon Musk, to defend Labour and Sir Keir Starmer. Why did I say you couldn't write this? Because people would laugh and say, "Had a way, man, Adrian. That can't be right." Well, it is. Google Ivor Kaplan, former Labour MP and Veterans Minister. He's been arrested. What do you mean he's been arrested? How does that work? Dead simple. There's a term now. I'm going to use PDF to replace the first word. It begins with P and ends with file, a PH. Because YouTube don't like using that word, or like anybody using that word. So everybody just uses PDF because it's much easier. You know what I'm saying? So these PDF hunters were interacting with this Ivor Kaplan, and he believed that he was going to have, well, he believed he was going to play Mr. Wobbly Hides His Hat with a 15-year-old boy. So he had gone because he believed he was going to play Mr. Wobbly Hides His Hat with a 15-year-old boy, except the PDF hunters were the 15-year-old boy. And they pitched up. Got you. Not like a Noel Edmonds. Gotcha. But they got him. Yeah, it's the same fella. Who wrote that? Keith Mitchell. Yeah, it's the same fella. So he was arrested for allegedly sending indecent images and trying to meet a 15-year-old to play Mr. Wobbly Hides His Hat. I'm having to change the wording of that, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, will Labour condemn one of their own? As I say, he's a former Labour MP and Veterans Minister, and he is using social media to meet up with people to do stuff he shouldn't be doing stuff with. So watch the newspapers, watch the reportage. There's video on X. There's video of him being arrested by the police. You know he's done, but will he be able to pick up the phone once he's in the police station, once he's been arrested? Will he be released on police bail to appear at court? Or will Labour stay silent again? Nothing about the gangs, nothing. But a man that is tracked down by the PDF hunters and then handed over to the police and they arrested him? Wow. Des Ashton has said, no, they weren't. The spinners are already out saying he's not one of us. It was 20 years ago. Member of the Labour Party, Labour MP. How much more do you need? But you see, that's they think we're thick. And I say this many times. The attitude of this scum-sucking pond life, as Des has said, they've got the spinners out. Not as in the singing band, but as in the people that they use to manage the news. Oh, blimey, alliteration. So it doesn't matter whether it's Tony Blair, Charles Linton, Bow Street Magistrates, or whether it's Alistair Campbell taking some boy in the Middle East or Europe or somewhere that put a paper together. It was the clear and present danger from Iraq and Saddam Hussein. 45 minutes, he was going to start lobbing bombs at us, remember? Whatever happened to Dr. David Kelly? So just watch it over the next couple of days. They'll distance themselves from him, but the general public, me and you, the working man and woman on the street, we can see right through these cretins, these clowns in clown world. This is 2025 now. We're too sophisticated to take the usual BS from the newspapers, from the government, from the parasite classes, from the political classes. We are far too sophisticated because some of us, I've been around the sun quite a few times in my time, and I've seen things and stuff and actually know stuff. Some of it is so bad, I can't bring it here because it will get me killed. And you just think, oh, there's, people have said that before and it's just drama. It's just stuff. Look, I've been removed from the radio when I wouldn't do as I was told. I had a manager saying to me, oh, man, I'm getting heat. Stop talking about the immigrants. The asylum seekers, boss. No, you can't call them that. You can't call them that. Right, okay. So I went on air and called them economic migrants because that's what they are. No, 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 no. I was removed because he couldn't trust me to keep my mouth shut. He wasn't going to sacrifice his job for mine. And where was he getting the heat from? Well, he was the boss of the radio station. Where else would he be getting the heat from? I'll leave it to your imagination. But I have a furtive imagination, and I don't need to use it to know and understand stuff. That's why I mentioned Dr. David Kelly. And we'll leave it at that. Because some people will say, oh, you should just say it. Just say it. Here. I'm not thick all day. But these are the people that in 2020 decided to take the jab. And then they decided to take the booster. And then they decided to take another jab and another booster and another jab and another booster and another jab and another booster. What the actual? You didn't do any research? You didn't know that you were being shafted by those that are supposed to manage you? The governance of this country is evil. They laugh in your face. So if I told you what I knew, how do you think they would react? Told you before, Simon Bates fondled my bollocks. You'll cut that one out. We'll continue with Labour pains. Has he? Breaking news. Ivor Kaplan, he's been deleting the tweets. Oh, do you want to know why? Oh, let's use both of my IQ points and I'll tell you why he's been deleting tweets. Because he's been sending Richard pics. He's been receiving Richard pics. He's been talking about male models. And do you know who else? In all the filth that he's been sending and posting on X, do you know who has stayed friends with that man? Because they obviously didn't think it was bad enough. Ginger Growler, the front benchers, the Labour Party. All these people are going to be shitting themselves before tomorrow morning. Now, Kaplan, if he is deleting tweets, the press are onto it. But wait till I tell you what I'm going to tell you now. Oh, did I just mention Ginger Growler? Anyone? Yvette Cooper, Angela Rayner. Well, I never, thankfully. One of them's married. Are you aware that Angela Rayner's son, Ginger Growler's son, records violent adult type movies depicting throttling? Now, the question that has to be asked, because of the namby-pamby pingo liberals, Rachel from Accounts follows Ivor Kaplan. Angela Rayner follows Ivor Kaplan. I've told you, I think David Lammy might. But I've got a list of names that follow him. And they would have been very well aware of the stuff he was posting. Because they were posting at the same time. So Angela Rayner's son, he's called Ryan Batty. And has an OnlyFans with his wife. Oh, I bet Mummy is so proud. And they do kind of, throttling. It's a bit, well, you know what I'm talking about before, without going too deeply into this. So the politicians like to say to you, do as I say, not do as my son does. His name's Ryan Batty. Now, I got a little confused by that, because surely he would take his mother's name. So why is he called something else? His second name is Batty, showbiz name possibly, or OF name possibly. And please don't ask me to tell you what an OF is. Just go and Google it. So her son is having his wicked way and making films to post on OF with Ginger Growler's daughter-in-law. I mean, it's been well publicised on Instagram and X, Twitter, running full throttle since 2022. Who said that? Herding cats. Yeah, something like that. It only costs you £5.50 a month. But let me tell you, a bit like Ivor Kaplan, who's sanitising his X feed. They can't, man, they can't. Oh, no, Theo Bovril. It wasn't, you said, was there a woman named Kaplan during the previous Tory government? No, Carol Kaplan was Sherry Blair's Woman Friday, who they took showers every morning together. Truth. Not quite sure where Anthony Charles Linton Blair was. Probably on Hampstead Heath. But Carol Kaplan, bit of a model looker, bit of a looker. She was in the shower with Sherry Blair every morning. Wasn't she, Sherry? You're wrong 'un. So £5.50 a month would get you into this OnlyFans profile, but the OnlyFans and Twitter or X profiles and Insta have been taken down today. Now let me just have a think. Obviously, I'm struggling this evening because I've only got 2 IQ points. I'm not very bright, but I know this: if they're deleting profiles, there's stuff in there they don't want you to see. More importantly, they don't want the police to see. And even more importantly, they don't want the public to see either. Alan, you've made me laugh out loud. I can't repeat it, you're wrong, but that proper made me laugh out loud. So there's this high and mighty righteous Labour MP, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, the parliamentary Labour Party, and her grown son is doing... I mean, is the Labour movement just full of deviants? They've got Ivor Kaplan wanting to play Mr. Wobbly Hydey Sat with 15-year-old boys. I mean, just go to X and see if he's left any of it up. Because I looked earlier and my hair started to curl. I've had to use straighteners tonight. Labour pains. Ginger growler. The lot of them. I will say, though, that, how can I put this delicately? Everything that Keir Starmer touches turns to shit. Look at Justin Trudeau. The idiot king has a meeting with the Donald at Mar-a-Lago. A couple of days later, he's resigning. Coincidence, perhaps? Perchance. There's no such thing as coincidence, according to Doctor Who. Justin Castro, that's very good. Who said that? Ulysses of Eriu. So we're beginning to see through the deception. We're beginning to see through all of the lies. And a lot of people, they still accept the narrative because they're too busy thinking about stuff with their ego rather than being a critical thinker and seeing through the absolute BS that these clowns try to promulgate on us and think we'll take it. No, it's 2025, man. We've got places where we can tell truth. There are places where we can go and communicate. And there are places where, like this, we can meet like-minded people. So what do? Well, I'll tell you. Here's the answer. Whatever the system tells you to do the opposite. Whatever the system tells you to do the opposite. Change for a better future. And look, these clowns who are going, well, we were elected on a mandate of change. Not the change that you're showing us, because you're going the wrong way, you daft tarts. I mean, if you look at America, where's Tampon Tim? Tampon Tim. What a great name. He's disappeared. You can make your own gags up. I'm not. I'm above I'm above all that. But at least the Democrats have ratified the Trump victory. So I'm just asking for a friend. Where's Tampon Tim? And 2025, I'll tell you again. I will tell you again. 2025 is going to be the year of the PSYOP. Because they're not going to give up. The military-industrial complex are not going to give up. So I'm going to tell you what the government's job is. So again, you're going to get insight. The government's job is to create problems that you didn't know you had and make a profit from selling us the solution. Do you want me to tell you that again? The government's job is to create problems that you didn't know that you had and make profit from selling you the solutions. Cow farts. It's a thing. And all of a sudden, we didn't know it was a thing until they told us it was a thing. And here's the solution. Bill Gates and Bovair. Bovair. Larry Fink, Chief Executive Officer of BlackRock, and Bill Gates in 10 Downing Street, greeted by Rachel from accounts and 2-tier Kia free gear Kia. The Harmer. Hang on. A billionaire in number 10 Downing Street interfering with the running of this country, the very thing that they are pointing at Elon Musk at and accusing him of, they are guilty of it. That is a definition of evil. They profit from solutions, but those solutions don't actually solve any real world solutions. I'll say it a little bit more slowly for you. They, the parasitic classes, the political classes, because they all come out of Parliament, multi-millionaires. How does that work on 150 grand a year? They profit, the political classes, from solutions, but those solutions don't actually solve any real world problems. Cow farts making billions. They don't solve any day-to-day problems. Cow farts. I only need to give you one example. Starmer. Give the NHS more money. I've been telling you for 2 years. NHS doesn't exist. It's virtually private. So on Monday, and this has been forgotten about, on Monday, your Prime Minister told the world via his press conference that the private healthcare system is going to take up the slack from the National Health Service to get some of the waiting times down, the waiting lists down. This is private healthcare. So who's paying private healthcare? Your government. Your government is taking your taxes, your national insurance, and they are paying profitable companies to take your bloody eyes out. It's not a problem you saw coming, but they gave you a solution that actually isn't a solution. It is the integration of private health and national health service. Now remember, the clown crooks that we call the Tory party already worked hard to make sure the NHS failed, so that when the NHS failed, the private health care system took up the slack. Do you know how much they charge for things? Correct. So NHS patients, possibly the people that came in on the boats, all they're going to do is they're just going to go, do you need a translator for that? Right, we'll sort the translator. You go to private healthcare and we'll sort you out in a couple of days. Or everybody else, or what, the English? Oh, no, they can go to the NHS and wait 2 years. So NHS, give it more money. Does that solve any problems? Of course it doesn't. Not a single solitary one. It's a massive black hole, not Rachel from accounts' black hole. You can only see that when she bends over. They tell you, we're going to give the NHS more money. And they do, to pay the private sector. So that extra money doesn't actually solve any problems within the NHS. It just gives more money to the private sector, who charge through the nose for it, or nose job. So the parasitic class do everything to keep you in a state of powerlessness. Now we have the NHS and private healthcare as one body, doing the same work, just one of them charging a shit ton of money that the NHS can't charge for. And I'll keep telling this and drumming it into you. Please tell other people that you might think are able of cognitive dissonance thinking. People that can think strategically, tell them about the channel. Please spread the word. Because what the government do is, the Labour government in particular, they borrow a ton of money. Borrow, 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 because the taxes aren't enough. So they'll borrow, use our gross domestic product, our GDP. I'll give you America, for instance. I think our debt stands at £3.6 trillion. And I don't think our GDP, our gross domestic product, covers that. Might cover the interest. But the politicians borrow from China, so it becomes our debt, and China owns it and can call it in anytime they want. 600 million, Rachel from accounts, has borrowed from the Chinese. And where's that going to come from? Your taxes. This is not government money. It's your taxes. So Rachel from accounts, who couldn't add 2 and 2 together and come up with 4, she'll probably say, I'm going to have to tax you more. Government spending is the very thing that causes inflation. And then they'll say to you, oh, inflation's up. Interest rates are going up because of inflation, and the cost of food to you is going to cost you more. But we don't give a flying because we're all subsidied in the House of Commons. We don't pay anything. Don't be stupid. We're crooks. We're liars. Keir Starmer, we've proven him a liar after liar after liar after liar. And Rachel from accounts is going to shag the economy. And when she does, she was looking like death warmed up in the House of Commons PMQ on Wednesday. These people are expert in not telling the truth. Inflation is brought about by government spending. It's nothing that you do or I do or anybody else. It's the crooks, the clowns, and the liars. But they sell it to you as a fait accompli. Can't do anything. Inflation's going up. Oh, inflation's going up. They never explain to you that it's their spending that increases inflation, that increases the price of food and stuff in the shops that you have to pay for. So they take your eyes out, they take your taxes, thieve it from you, and then raise inflation because they want to end up their time in the Houses of Parliament as multimillionaires. And the only thing that you have is to exchange your time for money, whether that's highly paid, lowly paid, but the only thing you've got is exchanging your time for money. And remember, money flows to where value is created. And these lives that I do on a Wednesday and a Sunday, this is where I attempt to create communication in a community. People will come and go, they always do. But the true seekers, the seekers of truth, come to gain knowledge and insight and context. The true seekers come to this channel for insight and value. So why all the lies? Just think of it this way. Why do the politicians need to be politicians? Why can't they just lead and say, right, this is the situation that we're in, this is how much we get in, this is what we need to do? Because we would trust our leaders, but instead they lie. But you see, that's why the Donald is different. He understands the game. He's playing 5D geopolitical chess. He's toying with these idiots. He's toying with them. He knows the game. And if he tells the truth, he's going to be seen because he knows that life is finite. He knows that he's going to check out at some point. He hopes he might have another 10 years, see Barron get into some kind of political power. He knows the reality of life is we're all born, we all die. Nobody gets out of here alive. It's what you do in between that counts. So it's 8 days to go before the orange one is inaugurated. And already he wants Greenland and Canada. Not to mention the Panama Canal. So why? What have I been telling you for 2 years? Everything that goes on in the world is just theatre. And it's theatre to what end? Energy independence. Energy independence. Gas, oil, minerals. Russia, Ukraine. Crimea. Gas and oil out of the Black Sea. Israel and Gaza. Oil and gas out of the Gaza Strip and the East Mediterranean Sea. That's why the Americans were in there building a port for the Israelis. Oh, it was to bring aid ashore for the Gazans. Right where you're going to be drilling the oil rigs. You look at anything, anywhere in the world, it is about energy independence. Now, if you have not seen the Donald say this, and it's not being covered anywhere, the Donald, Panama Canal, Jimmy Carter, the one that they've just stuck in the ground. Well, did they stick him in the ground? Because I'm not really sure, because he died last year. I've got the newspapers to prove it. And they do this for shits and giggles. They do this to laugh at you. I'll get to Venezuela in a second, Keith. They do it because they can, because you believe them. So now they're saying to you that Jimmy Carter died over Christmas and they've buried him today. No, they're playing with the Donald, because there has to be a 30-day mourning period for a president, so that when the Trump is inaugurated in 8 days' time, all of the flags in the Capitol have to fly at half-mast. Of course, they're just toying with him and playing with him because they can. But can you imagine? He gets inaugurated, Donald Trump 2.0, and all the flags are flying at half-mast. It's an absolute slight. So, Canada. Why do you think Justin, man with small penis, why did Justin Trudeau step down? Let me tell you. 20% of all Canada's milk is bought by America. So 20% of all the milk in Canada is bought by America. 20% of Canadian cars, the motor vehicle industry in Canada, is bought by America. And it's all kind of a gentleman's agreement, really. So without America, because the Donald's going to come out and go, oh, here, yeah, tell your mate Trudeau, Foxtrot Oscar. The Canadian economy will tank without America's money. And are you aware that the Northwest Passage, gag alert, Northwest Passage is melting? But it's melting on the Russian side. So Russia gets into the minerals that they didn't have access to. And if you want any proof from me, the Northwest Passage will open up soon and Russia will have access to it. But if America has Canada as a 51st state and Alaska, then the Russians are going to struggle. Should we talk about the gas and oil from Greenland? Because you're thinking, why does America want to have Greenland? I've told you, just through two prisms. I'm going to give you the second prism, but through this one particular prism, it's all about the oil and the gas everywhere. Everything that's going on in the world, it's all about the oil and the gas. It's about energy independence in the future. Russia, Putin, has been trying to do this. Can you remember when Russia invaded Afghanistan in the 80s? Why did Russia invade Afghanistan in the 80s? The oil and the gas in the Caspian Sea. And then, straight after 9/11, within a few days, Putin was at George W. Bush's ranch in Texas, making the deal to take and extract the oil and the gas out of the Caspian Sea in a pipeline that they constructed from early 2000s, and it goes Tajikistan, Turkmenistan to a warm water port in Pakistan. Pakistan, they've just found massive gold reserves in the ground in Pakistan. They've got the black gold being landed in their country and then put in ships and sailed away. That's why Russia was invading Afghanistan in the 80s. And now Putin is a much smoother operator. It's strategic. So the Donald, he's trying to make America energy independent. So he's trying to find the oil reserves and the gas reserves, and he's having it out of Greenland, because Greenland are not necessarily happy with Denmark. But here's the thing. He's going to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Why is he doing that? Because there's oil and gas in them there gulfs. And seemingly there's a law which says that America can't drill for gas and oil in the Gulf of Mexico. So just change the bloody name and say, well, no, we're just exploring for oil in the Gulf of America. Nobody can touch you. So all that the Donald is doing is he wants America to have its energy independence, whether it be from the Northwest Passage in Alaska and Canada and doing trade deals with Canada, or getting the oil and gas out of Greenland, or making sure that nobody buggers about with the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of America as it's going to become. And then the Chinese, who are very unhappy because the Panama Canal, Jimmy Carter gave it away for naught. Gave it away. And the Chinese are all over it like a bad fitting suit. And strategic companies who know what the deal is are wanting to get into Greenland for the minerals. So America is looking at its own independence. It's $36 trillion in debt. Moderator's asking, there's 240 people watching. If you could hit the likes, please. So that's the prism. Everything that goes on in the world, look through that prism and debt. So I've been telling you on this channel for as long as the channel has been going, and it's taken people a while to catch up. Not that I'm intelligent, not that I'm clever. I'm not. I'm as thick as two short planks. But I'll tell you this. I told you what they are up to. And I told you at the time there were 7 countries that the Rothschilds' banking didn't have control of. And they wanted to have these central banks. Look at Syria. Syria was one of them. They now control Syria's central bank. Have you not questioned why Hungary and Venezuela are always in the news? They're looking for an opportunity to pick a fight with them. Why would they want to pick a fight with them? Because Hungary and Venezuela are 2 of the central banks that they don't own. There's 3 already. 2024 and 2025. There was only 7 central banks that they didn't own, and now they're going to try and take 3 of them. Who are the other 4? Iran. Oh my word, they're at war-ish with Israel. They're having a smattering of upsettedness with Israel. They want Iran's central bank. So already, Syria's gone. Hungary and Venezuela is teetering on the edge, and Venezuela's got a ton of oil. Then there's Iran. So already out of the 7, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who are the other 3? Now, these may prove a little problematic, but at some point, they're going to get into crypto. And that's how they're going to get the last 3. The last 3 are China, Russia, and North Korea. Don't believe me? Do your own research. I've been telling you for 2 years. So the World Central Bank will include Syria, Hungary, Venezuela, Iran, possibly China, possibly Russia, possibly North Korea. But once we get into crypto and digital currencies, they'll own them already. So I'm going to ask you a question. as we kind of round things off. Still got 10 minutes to go. But here's a question for you. Britain, Great Britain, if you wish. Hopefully Nigel's going to put the great back into Britain. But Britain can't stand alone. Europe, America. We have more in common with Americans. But which would you choose? We're going to have and negotiate with one of the two or both. But which one would you go for? Because remember, the Workerati are saying, we've got to get back into Britain. The BBC, we've got to get back into Europe, sorry. And Labour, we're going to go back into Europe by the back door. Well, anything that Labour does is always going to be by the back door because they're that kind of party. So if we can't stand alone, you've got Europe and America. Which one would you want to hop into bed with? You mucky tart. 1 for Europe, 2 for America. I mean, you can. Everybody's saying America. And the other thing that I wanted to say to you is, when I was talking about the pensioners earlier, how inept do you have to be to allow our gas reserves to be this critically low? We've got a week. If we had 3 or 4 weeks of bad weather and the gas ran out, oh, fan my brow, what would they have to do? Power cuts. Remember what I told you last week? Liz Truss gave the game away. She gave the game away. And she said, oh, power cuts in December. Power cuts in December didn't happen because they were saving it. So the gas is getting to a critical level. By the time we get to the Donald's inauguration a week Monday, we could be out of gas. And you know what'll happen then? The power cuts. And you know what'll happen then? We will have the old uns checking out en masse. These politicians are evil. Evil. We just have to pray that later on this coming week, the temperature starts to rise. But can you not see how what they do is they manipulate the press, they manipulate the narrative, the story arc, and all of a sudden they say, oh, well, 2 weeks into January, it's a bit cold, and well, we don't have much gas left. It's all unfolding as it should. They were always going to do this. They were always going to lie. And Labour did a report or a paper, and they were told 4,000 pensioners will die this winter. And they accepted that as collateral damage. Can you imagine? I think we'll leave it at that. I could talk about the Jaguar cars. The sales are plummeting. You know the woke advert that they did with these people with coloured hair and fancy stuff and saying, yeah, we're brilliant, us. We're brilliant. It's 2025. We are Gen Z. Easy lesson on how to kill a brand, how to kill a business. And they don't care. They got their fees. They don't care. I've told you before. Jaguar is in the fabric of this country. And they let the lunatics take over the asylum. And we're sitting there watching it. Plenty of coal under the North Sea, 300 years worth. I know, they won't let us bring it out though. Look, I'm from mining stock. From Sunderland, there was mines everywhere. Down a mile, out 2 miles, and then bring it back home. But they tell us, no, you can't do that. Well, actually, we as a sceptred isle, the Great Britain, United Kingdom, only account for less than 1% of the world's emissions. Have a word with China, the Chinese. They're still burning coal. They're power stations. But nobody dare, because China owns all the debt. And they'll just go, right, give us our money back. We haven't got any. What you got then? Do you want to build some nuclear power stations for us? Yeah, that'll do. But we'll just add interest on it. I hope tonight's been of some value to you. We should continue to have adult conversations. I love all of the comments that you make. Very erudite, very intelligent. So please, let's keep talking. Let's keep doing these lives. The next live's going to be on Wednesday, 8 o'clock, as ever, unless there's an emergency, of which I hope there isn't. And stay safe. Be well. Look after you, your family, and your community. See you Wednesday at 8. More videos coming tomorrow. Much, much more coming tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after. But whatever you do, wherever you go, don't forget the Bamberg. I'll see you on Wednesday, 8 o'clock.